Hello. Okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back. And for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me. And if you find yourself wanting to stick around to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV, then please hit that subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. And yeah, welcome to my spoiler-free review of The Bride, one of my anticipated movies of the year, written and directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal and inspired by the 1935 movie The Bride of Frankenstein, which was also based on the 1818 novel Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And I was really excited for this movie from the glimpses that we were getting of it from within the trailers. It looked like a completely different, refreshing take on a familiar story. So the movie is set in 1930s Chicago. The lonely monster Frank, played by Christian Bale, seeks help from scientist Dr. Euphronius to create a companion for himself. Together they resurrect a murdered woman named Ida, who becomes the bride, played by Jessie Buckley. However, the bride develops her own personality and desires rather than simply serving as Frank's partner. Their strange relationship turns into a rebellious romance that draws police attention and sparks chaos and social upheaval as the two outsiders become fugitives. I am a little late with this review. It's been quite a hectic week. I watched the movie on Monday. Like I said, I was very excited for it. It's one of my anticipated movies of the year. I was just really drawn in by sort of those glimpses that we were getting from within the trailers. It just looked very different. It looked quirky. It looked wild. And, you know, Christian Bale as the monster, it just got me really, really excited. So I seen the movie on Monday, and unfortunately, for me personally, this was a major disappointment. I came out thinking, what was that? It's full of intriguing, interesting ideas. It's trying to do a lot, but none of those pieces, none of the ingredients within this movie really sort of come together to create a very sort of fulfilling, compelling and immersive experience. It never kind of really invites you in. That's how it felt. I always felt like I was watching this story unfold from the sidelines. You know, it really failed to kind of pull me in and take me along with these character stories. It's trying to. And like I said, throughout the entire duration, I was intrigued by what they were attempting with its ideas, with its themes, you know, with how its themes play a part within the story. You know, it's all very interesting and has the potential to really bring to life something that is incredibly effective, that has a weight, that has something to say, that has a strong message, but it's handled in such a heavy-handed, clunky way through every aspect, through every level of how this movie is brought to life, from the writing, from how the narrative is structured, to the performances. It was just all kind of very clunky and heavy-handed, and with a movie that kind of really soaked itself as being this wild, bonkers, zany, sort of refreshing take on a story that's familiar but doing something incredibly different. You know, in the posters, in the marketing, you've got the motherfucking bride, you know, exclamation mark. And you are expecting something that's going to be really sort of rebellious, in your face, you know, bonkers, and really something that's completely different and refreshing. And unfortunately, it really kind of wasn't that. I mean, it's trying to be, and in moments, it's kind of like, yeah, a bit bonkers or a little bit wild, but it's only in kind of very brief moments. And so as an overall experience, I came out of it thinking that title could have really have lost the exclamation mark, because there was nothing, you know, the motherfucking bride about it. I just touched on performances there. I mean, the best performance, the standout performance in this movie was Jessie Buckley as Ida, the bride. Her performance was by far the best, by a country mile, in fact. I was really intrigued by what she was doing with the character. I spent a lot of my time sort of confused by what was going on with the character, and sort of, you know, how her character and the character of Mary Shelley sort of plays into that. Kind of left me at times thinking, what the fuck is going on here? I'm not quite, like, I'm kind of getting it, but it's not really fully coming to life. Like every other aspect of this movie, you know, you get some really cool different ideas sort of that kind of sort of get touched on or introduced, but don't really fully materialize into something that kind of really has a meaning, or is really kind of, yeah, it just kind of makes sense, you could say. But anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent there. Jessie Buckley was mesmerising in this movie. I really liked what she was doing with the character, but what kind of really let, one of the other elements that kind of really let this entire experience down was the writing. And the writing at times just made me kind of wince, kind of made me cringe, because it was like, it was sort of all over the place. It was sort of really unfocused, and whenever that was a sort of an artistic decision, whatever that was the intention of Maggie Gyllenhaal, you know, with the writing, to kind of give it that almost like unfocused approach, you know, in a way kind of reflecting what they were aiming for with the overall style of this story, that kind of the very kind of rebellious, wild, almost in a way, you know, even within the writing and within sort of the way in which they approach this story and its ideas, it's almost like they were kind of using the monster himself, you know, where you have these different pieces of different people stitched together. You know, was that the intention? Did they want to sort of have that kind of aspect of who Frankenstein's monster is reflected within the writing and sort of the structure of the narrative and its ideas? It kind of left me wondering that, but at the same time, it just wasn't really working, because all of those ideas and sort of what they were attempting within this experience, within this story, just really didn't fully come together to give me an immersive and consistent and cohesive experience that kind of just really pulled me along. It really failed at that. But I always remained intrigued. I always sort of was like interested to see how the story evolved, but I never felt like I was there with these characters because of just how awkward and clunky sort of all these different kind of ingredients and ideas and sort of different elements of its story sort of came together, and you'd have moments that kind of just stood out, and it's like, oh, okay, that's where they were leading up to, but there was no kind of momentum or journey to get to that certain point in the story. Same with how certain or different characters are introduced within the story at different moments. It's like, oh, well, where did these come from? And everything just kind of feels random and different and odd. Again, in many ways, I think you want to look at it from an artistic perspective, and maybe this is what Maggie Gyllenhaal was attempting here. Maybe they wanted the entire experience, this entire story, to have that kind of feeling of, you know, Frankenstein's monster, the kind of the embodiment of what Frankenstein's monster is, which is these different sort of pieces or different bits of people stitched together. Maybe that was the intentions, I don't know. I was really excited to see what Christian Bale did with this character of the monster, Frank, and it was another element of this movie that left me disappointed. There's moments where he's really good, and you could see he's really sort of having fun in bringing this character to life, but the performance, Christian Bale's performance, is just all over the place. And again, reflecting how I felt towards the writing and just how the overall story sort of came together, that structure with the narrative and how its ideas play a part into the story. It's even reflected in Christian Bale's performance. So I do wonder whether it was intentional or not. But for me, it just wasn't really working. And I just felt, underwhelmed. This was a very underwhelming experience. like I said, with something that's kind of sold as, you know, the motherfucking bride, exclamation mark, you're expecting something that's going to be wild, bonkers, you know, one hell of a ride, and it's not that. It's really not that. You know, it has that kind of rebellious nature there within its DNA, and because it's something that they are attempting, but it really fails at being rebellious. It's almost like, it almost felt like it just wasn't really willing to be fully committed to what they wanted this to be. It felt quite refrained. It felt quite pulled back, and I felt like they could have really have gone further with that. I mean, it starts quite promising. The movie begins quite promising. I like how the character Mary Shelley plays into this, and how that opening was sort of brought to life visually with the light, the shadows, the performance. It did kind of, in that moment, it did sort of bring me on board in that moment, and I'm like, oh, I'm liking this. But then after that first 5 to 10 minutes, it just really started to fall apart, and it just wasn't what it could have been. The potential was there to really have given us something truly different. You know, a familiar story inspired on a movie that I love, The Bride of Frankenstein, and really do something completely different with it. You know, this could have been a very fun, wild, thrilling ride that also had that kind of very sort of heavy, romantic, tragic weight to it, you know, where you are emotionally sort of pulled in and you are emotionally invested with these characters. It had the opportunity to really bring to life an effective, emotional but fun ride. It's sort of there, it's kind of there, those pieces where, you know, they've tried to kind of stitch them up, you know, and create something that perhaps does resemble Frankenstein's monster, it doesn't really fully come together to sort of bring to life an experience that just sucks you in, that just immerses you in. And as a result, for me, it was a very, very disappointing experience. It was almost, in many ways, it was almost like it was trying to be something incredibly deep and personal and emotional, but also something that had a scope to it, that was much bigger when it comes to what it was dealing with its themes. And Robert Meyer Burnett, who I follow on YouTube, and I felt like he summed up this movie perfectly. And he says that he felt like it lacked a scope, and it does. But I felt like it's because they are attempting to, they're trying two different things, or many different things actually. But there are these two stories, where whatever it be, Frank, the monster, and the bride, and sort of what her story is and what her involvement within the story is. And I feel like it's those kind of two different ideas with what they're attempting with these characters that kind of really clash, and as a result give us something that is quite a messy, clunky experience. One of the elements that I did find myself admiring about this experience was the cinematography by Lawrence Sher. He also did the cinematography for Joker, and yeah, there are moments in this movie that are just visually gorgeous and does such an effective job at kind of really conveying what I felt like they were aiming for with this story and its ideas and themes. It is at times a beautiful movie to look at, and it just sort of ended up fueling my frustration, because I felt like from a cinematography perspective, a visual perspective, as well as the gorgeous score by a Hildo Ganato. I think I've absolutely butchered that pronunciation there, and I apologise for that, but she gives us an absolute gorgeous score here that, again, along with the cinematography, really kind of reflects what I felt like they were attempting with these character stories and their journeys, and it, again, kind of just ended up fueling that frustration. So yeah, there are aspects of it that had me intrigued. that had me curious. You know, there are elements in how the movie was brought together, whether that be the cinematography or the score, that I just found myself really admiring and kind of really truly showed what the potential of this experience could have been. Unfortunately, it all just didn't come together to really give me something that was truly compelling, where I could get really sort of emotionally invested in, because it is quite a tragic story. It's a gothic romance. But unfortunately, that aspect of the movie, due to them trying to sort of attempt all these kind of different ideas with what they were doing with these characters, it just really fails to sort of have a weight to it, and something that kind of really just sucks you into this world. You know, there's a very awkward moment with these detectives where one of the detectives are sort of explaining his history and the involvement with the character of Ida, and it's such an awkward, dull moment, because it's also a moment that kind of really summed up the overall experience, and that I felt kind of really sort of aided in that lack of scope that I felt like that this experience really needed. Something that Robert Meyer Burnett sort of mentioned in his sort of assessment, his review really of this movie, and I absolutely agree. So yeah, I think it's enough rambling on from me with this one. They are my thoughts on The Bride, and I will be giving The Motherfucking Bride They are my thoughts on The Bride, but what do you guys think? Have you seen it yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And remember, if you find yourself wanting to stick around to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV, then please hit that subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. Again, I apologise. It's been quite a quiet week when it comes to the channel. It's been quite a hectic week when it comes to reality. I seen the movie on Monday, and only now today on Friday that I've actually managed to sort of record this review and share my thoughts with you all. So I do apologise for that delay. There are so many releases either coming up or are already in the cinema that I really want to catch and just share with you all my thoughts, and I'm going to try my best to catch as much as I can. You've got Project Hail Mary releasing next weekend that I'm incredibly excited for, and yes, so a lot to come. I have just finished building a retro setup as well. I'll put a picture by you or somewhere to show you guys what that's looking like, and now I'm trying to think of a way of how I'm going to sort of set it up where I can actually do a live stream with you all, with me playing retro video games. That's something that I'm really looking forward to doing, and live content is something that I'm really looking at doing a hell of a lot more this year. It's something that I kind of touched on last year, or towards the end of last year, and I found myself really enjoying it. And so yeah, but let me know below, what would you guys like to see more of me? You know, what would you like to see me review more of? I did sort of start doing retro reviews last year. Maybe that's something you'd like to see more from me. Let me know below. And again, just another big thank you to everyone that has supported the channel, whether that be liking, commenting, subscribing. It means the world to me. So yeah, that's it from me for now, guys. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.